Back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. I know it's been a while since you've heard from us. With me, Ivan, today. We've got Saz, we got Abram, and we got Devon. So let's hear from all of our hosts today and see how they're doing. Let's start with you, Saz.
I was just telling Abram beforehand, I'm in midterm season right now. I wrote over like 10,000 words last week, projects, assignments up the wazoo, so a little fried, but excited to decompress with some Quakes.
Yeah, I do not miss midterm season from a fellow quarter system school, UC Davis myself. Good luck, man.
Yeah,
It's
hopefully my
rough
last year.
there. Yeah, hopefully, you get through there. All right. Devon, how have you been?
I miss Quakes. I miss watching our teams play
It's
soccer.
only been a few weeks.
One of Yeah, I know. One of our buddies, Ness, in the server was like, "I don't like watching these other teams play. I want to see the Quakes play. I'm already ready for the next season." That's exactly how I'm feeling right now. I just want next season to begin, get the off-season transfers out of the way, and start her up again.
Well, I do share in that sentiment that, of course, there's no replacing the San Jose Earthquakes, and they're the best team to watch for us. But for me, any soccer is good soccer, and I feel like MLS is a story. We've seen the chapters. Fortunately, we're not in there. We got acts like the Hunger Games, and now we just got to see who's going to be Katniss and Peta in the MLS Cup final. Abram, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm really happy to be back. It's been a while. I was sad to miss episode 100, but that was a really good episode, and I applaud you guys. Yeah, I'm ready to do it.
Right.
Yeah, episode 100 was awesome.
Thank you. Yes, really appreciative that you took the time to watch, and we're glad to have you here for 101. Were you Jackson Mule or Stephen Lenhart for Halloween, Abram?
Tommy Thompson.
I guess both. I'm just, yeah, Tommy. I just tied it up, back here. No, it's just everyone with blonde hair. That's me.
There we go. All right. We'll throw Barbie in there as well.
Exactly.
Right. So for me, we're approaching the last month or so of the semester here at SF State College of Marin. I've been keeping up with MLS after the Quakes have been eliminated, although I was a little checked out in the first round of matches in the round of 16 because I do not like the format for the round of 16 this year. I don't think anyone does. But that's just given me an opportunity to pay attention to some more football, other soccer leagues, basketball, unfortunately hockey, San Jose Sharks, why? But now we're here to wrap up our thoughts on the 2023 MLS season as it pertains to the San Jose Earthquakes. Overall, comparing it, of course, the season prior, it's an automatic upgrade. We made the playoffs. We improved a lot. However, you can't not address the dip in form since League's Cup. And while it did take a lot of wind out of the sails for the Quakes and it's tough to adjust, other MLS teams were able to do just fine after League's Cup. So it's not an excuse. It's something that they had to adapt and deal with. And whether it's a depth issue, whether it was too much rest, I don't think that was the case, but some other reason, it just wasn't the same. So it did feel like a kind of tale of two halves, and Quakes were able to put up enough points in the first half of the season to at least back into the playoff spot. And then when they were in the playoffs, they played well enough to potentially win the game, but penalties are this team's kryptonite. So that's just how it is. If you cannot score enough goals to win in regulation, you roll the dice, and this is not a team that enjoys rolling the dice, especially when it comes to penalties. But I'm curious to hear what you all thought of the season. We'll go in reverse order this time. So, Abram, your thoughts?
It's hard to say because it was a very mixed bag. You know what I mean? Ultimately, when I look back on this season in 10 years, I'm like, okay, that's the season where Lucci brought us from last place to a playoff team. And I think that's a positive, in the long run. I think that we would look at the season better if we didn't have that monumental dip in form after League's Cup. Because that was, it was kind of wild how poor we became after that. I think it had to do with a lot of a lack of depth with players going into international duty, and we didn't have anyone to really step in their place. And I think Lucci also lost kind of faith in his players at some point. That's just my opinion, because you don't play the game so safe if you think that you can still win. And a lot of times we saw this season where we just kind of gave up on games and went for the draw instead of going for the throat, and that was kind of a theme for the last quarter of the season, I feel like.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree there. I think that they tried to play one way and over again at the end of the season, which was antithetical to how they changed formations. They swapped players in and out, and they were able to get some different results and play in different ways, win in different ways in the first half of the season. Just thinking back to that time in Leagues Cup, it felt like a death sentence because we were playing in Portland one game and we were playing against Tigres at home in the other game. It was a really tough draw, and we didn't really fault the Quakes for getting bounced from that group. In fact, they put up a better fight than we expected against Tigres. Tigres are back to murking some teams in Liga MX this season, so they're still the force that they are. And Portland at the time were still a very respected team, but now they hire Phil Neville. So it's really interesting to see how that worked out. Devon, your thoughts?
In terms of Phil Neville or just the overall season for the
yeah, your thoughts on the season.
There's separate opinions. Yeah, so I'm still confused how, the second half of the season, after Leagues Cup, we managed to only win 2 games. That was brought up quite a few times in the Discord server. And I think Lucci and Leach were definitely pushed on the most recent press conference as to why. I haven't seen many of the answers, but it's still somewhat hopeful is the only word I can think of, that the fact that Lucci Gonzalez managed to help this team improve our defensive stature, especially like after Leagues Cup. Sure, we didn't score many goals. We didn't put many in the back of the net. We certainly had chances to do so, but we still ended up conceding enough goals to warrant draws and stay close in the game. It's certainly a good point to think about next season, and it's something inspiring to me. Is like, sure, we've established a great defense, and 2024 hopefully we can build on that with a great offense and improve goal scoring.
Right.
But that seems to be what the Quakes have done over the last couple of seasons. We start well, especially under Almeida. We started well in a couple of seasons, and then we dipped, just like Lucci did with like 10 or 11 games winless. So I don't know. Maybe it's like a curse for San Jose.
Yeah, the most annoying thing that they can do is if they swap back and their offense is much better in 2024, and then their defense is back to leaking goals left and right. I feel like this is something that we've seen happen in the NFL between last year and this year. Broncos, great defense, good offense. Now the defense sucks. Raiders, bad defense, good offense last season. And then prior to Josh McDaniels getting fired, Raiders' offense was atrocious, and the defense was trying to keep them in games. Trying to get those two together, it should be more attainable in soccer, of course, because it's the same 11 players on the field as opposed to different units for offense and defense. But I feel like in MLS, sometimes that kind of wildness does happen, especially with the amount of turnover between teams from year in, year out. This is probably going to be more pronounced for the teams that didn't make the playoffs. But the fact that this wasn't a playoff spot a few seasons ago, and Earthquakes are still without a playoff win since 2010, I think that it's still up for grabs to see just how much change will happen to this roster and how much change we think will happen to this roster. And that's going to be something that we talk about after this section. Says, now you at the turn here, so you can tell us about the season and then your thoughts after that loss to Sporting Kansas City. And you can also include how you feel now, given the amount of playoffs that have happened since then involving Kansas City as well.
I think a few things go into it. I'll start with my thoughts, and then I'm going to bounce off some of the points that you guys made. I pulled up while you guys were talking the games since Tigres, because we brought up a good point of only, I think we said 2 wins since, and I'm looking at it. Yeah, 2 wins. After that, even in my interview with Jax, when I talked to him a little bit off, he said, yeah, it was really hard. Like, we just came back and, like, it's pretty much like taking an off season and, like, that's your preseason again now. He's like, it was really, really weird. Like, you don't, as much as you can play against each other, it's not the same intensity. So it was trying to get back into that. But even like looking at that, I'm just looking at some of these games and like I just remember it being really poor performances. I think it's something it was one of my concerns I said at the very first 3 games of the season was keeping the same pace. If you watch the way we pressed teams the first, I'll say 7 games of the season, it was unreal. It was perfect press. It was perfect tactics. It was perfect tracking back. It was everything. And I think it was, when did we play St. Louis? 1, 2, 3, 4th game of the season, Guerrero goes down with an injury. So that's the first one. Then I think international break happened around the time of Houston or Kansas, which is like 2 or 3 games later. So yeah, we did start to see us start to break down slowly there. I just think we didn't return. Depth's been a long conversation, and I think it's Lucci's first season, so I think this will be great for us to go into the offseason and really splash. I think the Hoppy signing really shows that we are willing to make big moves like that, and Leach has proven himself time and time again. Season as a whole, bottom of the West. I was here also season ticket holder, went to every single game as well as making podcasts when I think we won 4 games in a season. So objectively speaking, it's been night and day. And the soccer we've played good soccer. Like there were times under Almeida where I swear it was just send it to Christian and hope he gets down the line and can hit it in and find someone. Like we were playing really good ball for quite a while. So I can appreciate that as well. Being a little more picky and just looking at the season in its own little vacuum. Yeah, it was sad to see a bit of a drop off, but I know there's a lot behind the scenes, and like Jack Skane was on fire, like unbelievable. I mean, obviously, like a lot of us.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, like I got to know Jack. I think 2 seasons ago. So like we've seen him at Q2, so we do know he can play. We know he's fast. Like, but yeah, he started to really make a name in the squad. Gets injured. Like it just seemed like it was the theme. Benchy just had a bad start to the season. Never really got another chance. Akinola played all of 13 minutes all year. Like it was. So it'll be interesting to see how all that goes. And then another great point, I think this is a long-term project. We have a lot of young guys we're building. This is a big improvement from 14th to 9th. That's a big jump. That's a big, big jump. And then if we just...
It is still an improvement.
Yeah, and then also 69 goals allowed last season to 43. That is insane. A 20 plus goal difference, almost 30 goals less, almost half as many goals. That's different. Yes, we weren't scoring as many goals, but I think most teams realize that it is defense that wins championships. You can see that in the Kansas City game versus Seattle. You can see that in the Kansas City game versus us. I'm not saying they're going to go and win it all, but you can see that it's proven championships are won by defense. Or just a crazy offense, but the offense might be off in our case on the playoff night. So I guess that's my short-ish summary of the season, or long way short of the season. And then what was the next question?
Just wanted to mention that of all the MLS players for the San Jose Earthquakes who got minutes in MLS this season, only one got fewer minutes than Ayo Akinola, and that was Cam Sealy. So it just goes to show how underutilized Ayo Akinola was. Like, we didn't expect him to be the total game changer and have that much time to be Matthew Hoppe level improvement. We saw what we done in Toronto recently. He was expected more of depth piece and a jolt in that way. But still, I think that more than 50 some odd minutes across his 7 appearances was expected. And there were many games down the stretch where he was just not an option that Luchi Gonzalez was considering.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting breaking down what the players are looking like for their fates next season. But the next thing I want to talk about is specifically the Sporting Kansas City game. We know now that Sporting Kansas City not only beat the Quakes, obviously, but they managed to knock out St. Louis. It didn't even take them a game 3, which feels ugly to say in soccer, but they beat St. Louis home and away to knock them out of the Cup, which throws things wide open in the West. But I think that it shows that it's not the worst opponent to lose to if they knock someone else out, let alone the top seed in the West. But I do feel like this performance definitely summed up the second half of the Quakes season. Just the inability to muster offense, hanging on to games by a thread like the DC United game, and just needing luck, and the luck was running out at that point. I think the luck ran out the moment we got into the playoffs. We used up the remaining luck we needed in order to just qualify for the playoffs. But Saz, tell us, what was your thoughts on the playoff match and San Jose Earthquakes losing and getting eliminated in that season?
Sorry, a bus is going by. I think also to build off, to answer that question, I'm also going to build off a previous thing that I forgot to say is like, why does it seem like we always do this? Is it the curse of the Quakes to go? We just don't have that winning culture that someone like a Sporting Kansas may have. A lot, even though Graham Zusi doesn't play, Graham Zusi's seen some pretty good teams. Roger Espinoza has seen some pretty good teams throughout that in that locker room. Our most experienced player is probably Jackson Newell, or Jabo. Sorry, but we come from a culture of not winning games, and even like Jax talks about it in the interview I had with him. Like we score a goal and it just became a pattern of conceding. So it's like even when we were up in those games, it was just like a kind of like this in the air of, oh man, are we going to lose this? How long until it happens? Or like you see a few texts like, here it comes. And I think we kind of saw that in Sporting Kansas. The first 7 minutes of the game, I was like, oh my God, this feels like a playoff match. It feels like Warriors in the playoffs. Like, feels like a real playoff match. It feels like intensity. I'm like, I don't remember the last time I felt like this for a Quakes game. Not Leagues Cup, not Open Cup. Like, from real excitement outside of like the Classico, just because I beat LA and that's fun. I think both teams slow down. I think that Espinoza probably touched the ball almost as much as I did in that first half. We just couldn't get on the ball. He was doing so much defensive work. It just we couldn't get going. It looked like we were almost trying to hold off. We did have some good chances we could have put away. I hate the notion that I've seen on Twitter of Luchi plays timid, because I think there's a lot more that goes into it than people are giving him credit for. But I do have to agree at a certain point. Not that we were playing safe, but it looked like we were playing their game at a certain point. I mean, it is Sporting Kansas City, and we are away, which is not something we've been good at playing away this season, especially Sporting Kansas. But yes, it did feel like we were started to play into their game, and be reactionary instead of taking it to them.
Right. And Luchi Gonzalez has been asked in the last several press conferences near the end of the season about his substitutes, about his tactics late in the game, about how aggressive he is. And Luchi always seems to feel a little bit attacked by that. I feel that he would point to substitutions he's making, the type of balance in the game, and he felt pretty vindicated in his substitution choices, which I do feel like he has some valid points. I feel like the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But I feel like it's one of those situations where if enough people are pointing it out, then maybe there is some truth to the critiques that is going his way. And I don't think anyone would go as far as saying Luchi did a bad job this season. That's impossible to say, considering the improvement that he helped inspire. I think that, did he get exposed a little bit down the stretch? in some regards, sure. As the season progressed, there becomes more tape available for the way the San Jose Earthquakes played. Similar pattern to what happened with Matias Almeida. He was getting results early on, and then people started to figure him out. People started to neutralize that system. And I think that the San Jose Earthquakes were just unable to cope from that point on. Abram, what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought that we came to fight, and I didn't think that we were too bad. I think there's a lot of people that were maybe too harsh about the kind of effort that the players put in, because I don't think it's really about the effort. I think that you're a professional athlete, you go out there, you try your best every time. The thing that I think is the factor that changes whether you win or play good or whatever is focus. And I think that that's something we've struggled to really capture at times this season, where we're not really focused. They're thinking about other things or whatever it is. You see them on the field, they're not really uh, there all the time, and it shows when Jackson Newell starts to miss 2 yard passes, the stuff like those things, really shows when the team is on and when they aren't, and it's not because of a lack of effort. These guys want to win. They want to win the MLS Cup. They wouldn't go out there and just run around. They never want to do that in their career. They're born athletes, and they've gotten to this level not by not trying. You know what I mean? And you have to consider Kansas City is a better team. They have a better squad. Um, and I think that there's been points in the season where that hasn't been true. I think that when Kansas City were a poor team, we beat them. We made them look like a poor team. But they have a very strong team, a very strong fan base, a well-respected coach with a lot of experience in winning in this league. Um, so it wasn't, a favorable opposition to go up against. I think we only did because of their injuries early on in the season, where they lost like a bunch of points and ended up, being in the lower half of the table for most of the season. But the reality is that they're a really good team. Their goalkeeper is. I've heard that he's undefeated in penalty shootouts. We went to penalty shootouts with him. That's not what you want to do. Um, and our offense, everyone said it this season. When you block out Espinosa, you block out Abobasi, where are we going to score? Hoppy has gotten a lot of praise this season, but for me, he hasn't been good enough. For someone who's from Middlesbrough, from Schalke, played for these, I would say, they're higher than MLS level. For someone who comes from there and is highly regarded,
definitely sizes of the club.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. He's played for the national team. He's a highly regarded player and someone who you would expect more from. I didn't see enough for me to make him permanent, in my opinion. I think that he was a great deal to bring him in for what we did. It was like 200,000, out of pocket, but nothing on the salary cap because of the U22 initiative. That was a great deal. And those goals were very cheap. The 2 goals that he scored, very cheap for us. But overall, he wasn't the player that we wanted to be. And I think that we can massively improve on him and also Cade Cowell, because that left side is so weak for us. If you block out Espinosa, you block out Abobasi, what are we going to do? How are we going to score? So, that's something that the problems that we've had all season kind of really showed in the last game. Even though we tried our best, we didn't really have the firepower to finish it off.
Yeah, and to further your point about Sporting Kansas City are the better team overall, I think it comes down to more time played with each other, smarter acquisitions perhaps this season, and I think a few edges in key areas. Look at the goalkeepers. I think I can't really hate on Tim Melia overall. I think Daniel probably the better goalkeeper going forward into 2024, except when it comes to penalties. There's just you can't really replicate that. There's many career backup goalkeepers in Europe that outshine regular starters, elite players when it comes to penalties. Both defenses, their starting defense was Davis, Rosero, Fontes, and Ndembe. I think that they're about on par. They have a really good fullback in Ndembe. We have a really good fullback in Trauco. Perhaps their center back partnership with Rosero and Fontes is slightly better than Rodriguez and then our next best center back, whether you want to go Mensah or Beeson. And then you look at the midfield. I think the midfield and the forwards is where they get the edge. I think that the collective six of Walter, Radoja, Tommy, that's a very strong midfield three. And then Politos, Shallowy, and Russell. And then if you're not really that keen on Polito, then Gadi Kinda, their first option off the bench, that could still be a really strong option too. And I think there's a lot less balance in our forward options and certainly in our depth. I think that it was telling that Kansas City only used 2 substitutes. It was Kinda and it was the evergreen Roger Espinoza. The Quakes used 5. So our substitutes weren't able to influence the match more than their 2 enough to get us a win. And it shouldn't all be on the substitutes. It's on all 11 players on the field. But another stat that points to me that we don't have a lot of depth is we had, just double checking my math here, we had only 13 players have more minutes in MLS this season than JT Marcinkowski, our backup goalkeeper this season. Our only 2 non-starters to log more minutes were Kate Cowell and Tanner Beeson. So if we only are relying heavily on 13 players when you're allowed to use a maximum of 16 each game, and you should ideally have 18 to 19 players that you can rely on throughout the season, then that's not great. And it's obviously it's a whole different problem. The fact that we did miss a lot of time with Daniel in some matches. JT Marcinkowski, of course, being a great goalkeeper, but you don't want to lose your best goalkeeper for any amount of time due to injuries or suspensions. And then, of course, JT Marcinkowski himself got hurt, which led to Emi Ochoa filling out the remainder of the season as the backup goalkeeper behind Daniel. Devon, we'll get your thoughts, and then we'll get into the player by player, and we'll talk through what we would want to see for each player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep my eyes wide open here and see big picture. If this was a regular MLS season game versus Kansas City, we would all be pretty happy and ecstatic because of the fact that we went to Kansas City and we got a shutout in regulation. If it wasn't for those extra minutes, or if it wasn't for the PKs, yeah, like I just said, we'd be fairly happy. But going 0-0 and just like Abram and Saz said, falling into penalty shootout against probably one of the best penalty shootout teams in the league is detrimental to us. And I personally think if there was any other team in the league or in the Western Conference we were to face, we would have had a solid chance on moving through. But again, it was Kansas City, and I think only Portland Timbers have shown that they can get fairly close to Kansas City. So that said, building off a couple of the other points, after Leagues Cup, a lot of our fans, especially in the Discord server, were complaining about, one, the formation not using the 3-5-2. That was a pretty consistent theme. The second one was the fact that after 15 minutes of play, we'd switched into a defensive formation. And I think that's one of the things that Lucci was getting criticized on. He switched to a defensive formation like after halfway through the first half, and then kept that defensive structure till the end of the game. And it didn't really bode well for us, because normally when you stick to a tactic or you have a tactic, you're used to it, and it's slow to, it takes a long time to develop other structures to the tactic. And it was kind of evident for the Kansas City game that you could see like the players just didn't really know what to do in the latter stages of the game. They didn't know how to build the ball up offensively in possession. And it was really hard for the Quakes to put shots on target. So I think if we had a better structure halfway through the season in terms of, consistently pushing for a goal and pushing for a win that included a multi-goal difference, I definitely think we would have seen a more positive result in the second half of the season. If I remember correctly, someone can prove me wrong here, but I think we've only had a multi-goal deficit win twice this season. It was the 3-0 win versus Kansas City, and then the 2-0 win versus Seattle Sounders, and I think that was it. Every other game was a 1 goal difference if for a win. So that's something I would love to see in the 2024 season, is having more games where we feel more comfortable, kind of pushing for a win and pushing for a comfortable win at that. I don't really like sitting there and sitting on the edge of my seat, no matter how passionate I am about the team. You never want to be in those situations. You always want to have a comfortable seat in the last few stages of the game. So I personally, yeah, um, it's I don't know. It can go either way, but I think you walk away with more criticism at this stage because um, we had the players and the staff to go further than what we did, for sure.
Right. And I think that it's unfair to critique any Quakes fans that want anything less than at least a playoff win of some kind. And just thinking across all the competitions available for the Quakes, excluding, of course, CONCACAF Champions League, because that's a bit far-fetched right now. MLS Cup, we haven't had a win since 2010. U.S. Open Cup, we make some progress here and there, but the one time it might have looked a bit more promising, we lose to Sacramento Republic. MLS is back, of course, is a one-time thing, and that was our most recent MLS opponent only cup competition win against Real Salt Lake, who are conveniently also playing right now. Houston just scored against them, so that's bad news for Real Salt Lake. And then think of the Leagues Cup, of course, they didn't really perform as well either. And it was a tough draw, but still, you got to play the teams you're against. So for this next segment, we're going to go through the Quakes roster in number order. So starting with one, JT Marcinkowski, and then we'll just take turns here. We'll rotate each time. So first it'll be me, then Saz, Abram, then Devon. Then next player, we'll start with Saz. And we'll just give our thoughts as to what we'd like to see happen with that player that season. We'll try to keep them as brief as possible because we got a lot of players to go through, and then we'll see how things look. So starting with JT Marcinkowski, assuming a full recovery, not sure if there'll be enough time between now and the start of next season for that to happen, but assuming that he'll be good to play at some point early in 2024, I'd like to see him back if he wants to, but maybe he'll request, if he is good to go, a chance to play somewhere else. But I'd love to see him back. Saz?
I love JT. I think he's been with the squad for a while. He's going to want to stay. I think next year is his last year on the contract, if I'm sure. He's staying. I don't see. I think we just put Emmy in for a little bit, gives Eric a little more time for Q2 as well, who I heard has been phenomenal for them anyways. Yeah, I mean he's a player's player. He's been in the locker room. He helps. I think he adds a lot more than people realize. I mean, to the community as well. So I see him stick around.
Okay, Abram?
Yeah, to build on what Saz said, JT, a phenomenal guy, one of the coolest dudes that we have at this club. I think that he could play number one for a lot of teams, but we have probably the best, maybe second best goalkeeper in the league. So it's rough for him. So a bit of information that I know is that Crystal told me that he's done, that his contract is up. And so that makes it really difficult. Maybe, she might be mistaken, but from what I understand, his contract is up after this season, and that makes it really tough for the Quakes. They have to make a decision, like, do we, sign this guy off of vibes? Because that's how he's going to be until, hopefully midway next season. And that's, that's generous. But whether they sign another keeper or not, I don't know. But one thing I will say that Emmy could be a second choice keeper. I think that he has the ability, but I don't think that it's not beneficial to his growth, in my opinion. I think that I would like to see him continue with Quakes 2, not just because it means Quakes 2 wins more games, more penalty shootouts, but it also means that he gets to get more experience and build as a keeper because he does have a lot of deficits in his game still as a 18, 19-year-old. I believe he's 18. And that's very young for a goalkeeper. I've heard people compare him to Gaga Slonina and like how he, got a chance at 17 years old. It's a totally different, situation because we have Daniel, locked in, and also Emmy, as good as he is, isn't Gaga Slonina playing for Chelsea. You know what I mean? So it's really a tough situation. And I mean, I'm talking more about Emmy than JT at this point. But yeah, for JT, it's really rough because I don't know what I would do. I would want to keep him, but it doesn't financially burden me to keep him around. And he's not on a homegrown deal anymore. He's getting older. He's not old, but he's getting older. So, what do we do with a keeper with one leg? I don't know.
Devon?
Yeah, similar to what Abram said. We're not the ones that are financially responsible for JT, and nothing's on the roster. I think looking at 2024, he has these three leg tears. If you look at the roster right now and how, judging how long he's going to be out for, we'll use Nathan as an example here. He's been out for quite a long time, and he was only able to get 45 minutes for Quakes 2 at the very last beyond the last game of the season. I think he had there was a friendly, and he got to play 45 minutes of it. But using Nathan as an example for JT won't get any minutes for the San Jose Earthquakes. So he'll just be injured reserve for the whole season, and after I think September is over, or August, whenever the summer transfer window ends, that's when our roster freezes, and there's no chance that JT will be on the roster for that. So, what are we going to do with him? How is he going to recover? Are we going to keep him on our payroll, or are we going to re-sign him to help improve his leg, or help him with his recovery? Who knows? I really do hope JT is a fighter. He's willing to come back. He's willing to work harder than he has before for the San Jose Earthquakes, because he's been with this team since he was 12 years old, something like that, early in the academy days. So if there is a player I could bank on, returning stronger than he was in the past, it would be JT Marcinkowski for the San Jose Earthquakes.
Right. So our consensus is that we would be welcome to him staying, but just logistically, it would be very difficult, and it's still unclear when he'll be back, but it's going to be a while. So, Saz, you'll get us started with Paul Marie.
I said, Paul Marie, mon ami. I think every year he gets a bit better. I think it's just, would I be lying if I said I think there's a lot of games where Trauco and whatever should be, or Capo could be starting over him? Yeah, but no, yeah, I think keep his spot. I don't know what his contract situation is, but I thought he had a really good. I thought this was his best year for us. I think it was the first 4 or 7 games. I swear he was our best player. He was 10th in the league this year on challenges or duels or something, something crazy like that. And he didn't even play in every game. Imagine if he played every game. There were some games our best player offensively or defensively. So yeah, it'll be cool to see how he grows for next year.
Yeah, Abram.
Totally agree with Saz. He's a phenomenal player, and for the price, you can't beat it. I don't think there's many drafted left backs in the league that are putting up the same kind of numbers as him. I could be wrong about that, but I did hear from Crystal again. She told me about the press conference that they had recently. Jamin Moore got this out of them that I mean, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying this on the podcast, but Paul Marie.
We can cut it.
I've said it already. Paul Marie did get a contract extension in the middle of the season, as well as Benji. It's not extension, just a whole new contract. But yeah, so in terms of how long they'll be here, they still have contracts, so we're good to go with them. Paul Marie, I think that he's ready to be our starter left back. I think that Trauco has a lot of qualities that are better. He's a more experienced player with a skill set Palmieri doesn't have. That, I think that Trauco actually has a skill set that no one else has on this team. With how hard he can kick that ball with his left foot. But I think that if something were to happen to either of them, he's kind of invaluable with how he can play on both flanks with a very consistent degree of success. Um, I see no reason to move on from him. And honestly, there's games where I feel like Chaco gets beat for speed, and Palmieri isn't like the fastest player in the league, but he's very fast, and I think that there's games where Palmieri is more suited to play than Chaco just simply because of his superior athletic ability. And I also love when he plays left wing. He's a very good attacking player. So yeah, he brings so much value for what we pay for him, and I think that I hope that he goes down to the Quake legend because I really love his personality, and what he does on the field too.
Devon.
I'd like to make this one point here, and that is if Paul Marie were playing for the U.S. national team, I think he'd be, or if he was a U.S. international, he'd be playing for the U.S. international team as a competing left back because of the fact that he's able to compete for a spot with a starting left back for Peru and a starting right back for
Equatorial Guinea.
Equatorial New Guinea. Yeah. That shows a lot about Paul Marie's ability, and Lucci himself alluded to the fact that Paul Marie earlier in the season, and he continues to prove that he is a starter player, and it's nice to know that in terms with fullbacks as a whole, we're not desperate for fullbacks. We have a solid depth, and Paul Marie is that perfect piece. Because if a capo is out on international duty, if Trauco is off on international duty or injured, we have Paul Marie. And I think most, if not all, Quakes fans would be really comfortable to see Paul Marie start for the Quakes. No, like it's Paul Marie is that perfect piece of the San Jose Earthquakes fullback team because of his ability to play both the right and the left. You don't really see that much in MLS fullbacks. He's totally versatile, and he could also play as a left wing, and could play as a left wing. He has the ability and speed to do so, but he also hits occasional bangers every season. Versus Austin FC, and I think he hit another one this year. I don't remember what team it was, but every fan's gonna want to see an occasional banger, right? Paul Marie is perfect.
Yeah. And I think in kind of a roundabout way, we've kind of established our thoughts on position groups at a time here. So just to recap with the goalkeeper, I know we didn't mention Daniel specifically, but I don't think we need to. Daniel would be phenomenal as our starter going forward. And then JT, love him, but wish him luck. And Emi Ochoa, capable backup if need be, but we'd love to see him in Quakes too. Now, to recap the fullbacks we just talked about, I think we're pretty pleased with all three of our main fullbacks, Carlos Capo, Miguel Trauco, and Paul Marie. Certainly capable enough for MLS level. Maybe none of them hit the heights of Kai Wagner, but they're definitely quality left backs and fullbacks for Major League Soccer. So let's talk about the center backs. We know Nathan is still hurt. We hope that when he's back to where he was, but there's no knowing that for sure. So the main ones we're going to talk about are Rodriguez, Beeson, and Mensah. And I think with Mensah, it's an understanding that he's played his last game for the Quakes. Abram, your thoughts?
I will report you'll hear on Tectonic Takes that Nathan did play for Quakes too. So he, at least is able to do that. He has been in training. So, things are looking good for Nathan. However, I believe his contract is coming to an end soon. I don't know when, so don't quote me. It could be next season. It could be this season. I don't know. But, aside from him, I think Rodriguez has been phenomenal. We didn't talk about the stats and stuff, the graphs that Hameen made. Hameen actually found that a lot of people rate Rodriguez in S tier. Probably the lowest is probably A tier. And I would agree, he's an S tier player for this team because the impact he's had at the back line is unlike anyone else. I think he's played every game this season. That's invaluable, and I'm just hoping that we can make him permanent because the vibes he brings and the impact he has on the field is insane. So that's great. I think, are we talking about all center backs or for just Rodriguez?
Yeah, we're just going by position groups now to move things along.
Yeah, Mensa also has been a great player for us. I think he had a shaky midseason after the thing happened where he broke the team rules and was out of the team. That was unfortunate. But eventually, I think he did come back and be the player that we saw at the very beginning of the season. I think he was a great pickup in a pickle too, because a lot of GM put in that position where your star center back rips his ACL. You would have expected a far less capable center back than Mensa. So that's great work from Chris Leach. Tanner Beeson, I think, stepped up this season. I think that he showed us he's better than we all thought he was. He wasn't as good as Jonathan Mensah or Rodriguez, but I don't think anyone expected him to be. I think that the frustration around him was that he was consistently playing over Mensah, and he wasn't bad. He just wasn't Mensah. You know what I mean? So I think
As well as
that
the nebulous nature of Mensah's absence at points this season.
right. And there was a run where Lucy kept playing Tanner Beeson because Tanner Beeson kept doing the job. Even when Mensah was back, it was still Tanner Beeson because of the performances that he was putting out on the field. So I think in terms of those three center backs, we can't ask for much more. And we have Agrin and Walls. I think Walls is someone who I do want to touch on because he was phenomenal for Quakes too. In the few times that he's had opportunities with the first team, he's shown that he's a very capable athlete with a good head on him, I think, as well. He he actually went through his whole collegiate career without receiving a yellow card, and then his first start with Earthquakes, he got a yellow card. He had to
Makes
do it,
sense.
but it is what it is.
Welcome, Devon.
Yeah.
But that's just shows the kind of player he is. He's very smart and also fast and strong, and he can jump like crazy. But yeah, I don't think there's many more to talk about.
Casey Walls is still only 20 years old, so I'd love to see a bit more of what he could do. Perhaps
Casey
him
Walls
and
Casey Walls is out of contract, so we're probably likely gonna move on from him. This is probably his last season. I have his shorts. The gold shorts. They smell like him and everything, and I never brought them to the game to get them signed, which is a travesty. But yeah, I don't think that we're going to see Casey Walls anymore, even though he was a solid center back for Quakes too. So
yeah, so then they'll be up to the next players up being Daniel Mooney and Oscar Agrin. I think the question for me is what to do with Tanner Beeson. What role can he be? I think that if we're looking at our main center backs as Rodriguez, Nathan, and Tanner Beeson going forward, I think it's clear that the Quakes would need to sign a fourth center back. And I think that it would be a fair assumption to want that center back to be closer to Rodriguez's level and to pair with him. And that way it's less pressure on Nathan to come to recovery. And I think Beeson is still a solid depth option. And I think we've seen a good chunk of what peak Beeson as a starting center back could be, at least for the time being. Your thoughts, Devon?
Yeah, I think we should re-sign Mensa, and before we even get to any other who should work alongside Rodriguez and where should Rodriguez be, I think the first question that we need to, or the first thing that the fans need to say is we need to permanently sign Rodriguez, no matter what.
Absolutely.
And according to some sources, he is going to be a TAM signing. He's not even. He won't even be DP according to Leach. So that would be fantastic for the San Jose Earthquakes because then we can spin a DP slot on someone else. or somewhere in a position like Cam where we need that upgrade. So sticking with the center back points here, it would be amazing to see Rodriguez and Mensah as a center back pair duo, um, considering Mensah's still is currently under contract negotiations to re-sign with the team, as well as the fact as what Saz posted here in the chat saying he's exploring that ability, or he's using his ability to explore other contracts. So it can go either way, but I think it's safe to say fans love having Jonathan Mensah, and he's an absolute rock in the back line for the team. However, when he's not getting many minutes, it's not fair. It's not fair to him to say that he's been a disappointment for the team, because when you don't get minutes, you don't have that consistency. So, I think the top two for center backs would be Jonathan and Rodriguez. However, if we move to a 3 center back pairing, it kind of I would love to see what happens with Nathan as a like a left center back, Mensah in the middle, and Rodriguez on the right center back. As long as Nathan and Rodriguez don't stand next to each other, we'll be just fine in the back line. So if that's a possibility, I would absolutely love to see it. In terms of Ogren and Walls, I think it was alluded to that Walls is kind of like a USL player with a smaller ceiling than most, if not all other.
We'll take him at Oakland Roots.
Dude, he would be amazing at Roots. Probably sack too, to be honest. And as for Ogren, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. He was a little shaky, given the fact he was playing for another team for so long. He only played for like the first game against the Honduras team, and he looked pretty shaky.
Shout out to the biggest Agron fan, Shiloh.
Big up Shiloh for staying with the train. I'm not sure what Ogren's going to do, but I only hope that we send him, if he doesn't stay, we send him to a team that's useful for him.
So the first thought I thought of for a potential center back signing would be Eric Palmer-Brown. He's currently 26 years old at Panathinaikos. The thing is, though, they have a good chance of getting out of their Europa League group with Rennes and Villarreal. Now, obviously, if that happens, there's absolutely no reason for him to move anywhere else. But if they were to get bounced, especially if they finished fourth in that group somehow, then that would be the case for maybe seeing if he would explore that option. But I still think that it will be something that I thought could be fun. But I won't do too much more transfer speculation. On to the center midfielders. So we had Jackson Ewell, Carlos Gruezo. I'm going to include Jamir Montero in here. So all the, Cam, CDM, CM, all those people will be involved. And we got Nico Shakiris, Judson, and Michael Baldissimo. And I'll give Saz first crack at the midfield. Never mind, he is frozen. I'll take first crack at the midfield then. So I think Montero probably moving on from him. Yule sticking around. Gruezo, we stick around with him. Shakiris is probably going to fill that void from Montero, at least for the time being. I don't know about Judson, but I think it's got to be for Baldissimo whenever we get a chance to move on from him. So I think we have our core three that if we don't make a signing to replace the starters, we could have a viable midfield three. But I really do think that we need another option to sign there. Definitely we will need more depth if we don't keep both Judson and Baldissimo, and both of them are very defensive-minded anyway, so that's something that we got to look out for. Abram, your thoughts on the midfield?
The midfield was a shaky part of this team. I think that when they were firing all cylinders, we were the team that we were supposed to be. I think that Jackson Ewell, for as much crap as he gets, he is the metronome. He is the captain. He really, dictates how the team plays. When he's not playing well, it's really hard for anyone to get the ball because he just he moves the ball around so well. I'll go quick. So I think that Baldissimo, I think that based off of the kind of contract he has, it would be feasible to keep him because he doesn't have any impact on the wage bill. Um, so I would like to see him move on and give somebody else a shot in that position. Uh, Edwin Mendoza, but I understand if that's not possible, but Nico Shakur has been a superstar. I think that his biggest thing right now is stamina. I don't think that at the later stage of games, when it gets just minute 75, I don't think he really maintains that same level that he has in the earlier stages, and so that's something that he's going to work on. He's still 18. He still has time, and he's progressing really well, in my opinion. He's coming along really nicely. Um, who else do we have? Grezzo. Grezzo has been rated an S tier for a lot of fans. I think that he wasn't what we all expected from a record-breaking signing, and I think that's fair. But I think that just that's how he plays. The kind of defense he does is more of blocking lanes rather than the Judson style of just like breaking up play by throwing his entire body in there and racking up cards, right? Um, Even though Grezzo did get his fair share of cards, um, I really like Grezzo, and I think that on the ball, you know, especially he's a huge improvement on Judson, which is who we had before him, and Remedy, and whoever else you want to say. Grezzo is probably one of the best center defensive mids we've had in a very long time. Who else? Montero. Montero's been a disappointment. I think that he's had really good moments, and I think that people have been really hard on him. So I'll admit that he's not been a complete loss this season, but compared to the player that we first saw when he came to San Jose, it's not good enough for a DP level. I think that if we brought him down to a TAM signing, that's the only way I'd consider keeping him. Even then, he's very expensive. And I think that he wants to move on. Honestly, I've heard that he's not a huge fan of the city. So if we can help him move to a better team where he'd be happier and playing, in the position that he wants to play in, I think that would be very beneficial for both parties. Because on the field, it's more he's giving sixes and sevens instead of 8 and 9s. And I think
He's
that's the
27 as
major issue.
well.
Right.
Yeah, so this would probably be a good opportunity if he wanted to move somewhere else among MLS. There's a prior history with a fellow Cape Verdean, Dejani, in Liga MX if you want to go that route. And of course, from a Portuguese-speaking nation, there could be some offers from Portugal or Brazil's top flights. So it could happen. My question for Nico Shakiris, and perhaps a tectonic takes, is he now the highest ceiling player at the San Jose Earthquakes, says?
Yes, yeah, I would believe so. I'm looking at the roster right now. I'm trying to think if there's like anyone who I'd even be like maybe them, but yeah, no. I think at that age to have that awareness, just seeing him check in, check off the ball, look around, scan the field. My fear is if he stays with the Quakes, I feel like that ceiling drops.
Right.
Like I feel like he just needs the higher level of development.
Yeah, I think that is certainly the case. Devon, any thoughts on midfielders? If not, we can go to you for wingers.
I guess I'll keep it short. I definitely agree with Saz's take, though, on Nico Tsakiris. He definitely is the highest ceiling among all the youth players we have. I know Mendoza is kind of reaching that potential, but at the same time, we haven't seen him play with the first team yet. Besides that, I think he didn't even play in the friendly versus Honduras team. He was the only man on the bench through the whole 90s. So I kind of felt bad for Mendoza for that. But yes, Nico has the higher ceiling. I think Jackson and Carezzo are our starter center mids. Maybe just maybe Montero when the time is right, can head down to San Diego to help them start with their campaign. That would be kind of cool to see. He stays in California and he moves to a location where he might have a little more fun in a city. But I do think Nico is a starter, and if he still improves next season, he should be sent off to a European team if a European team is interested. Similar example is Cade Cowell. He was here for a couple of years now, and once he hit 18, he looked like he was almost at his MLS prime and should have been sold at that time. And while he stayed here longer, he kind of digressed a little bit more.
Shakiris is Greek too, so maybe we loan him to the Greek league, and then we can make that loan swap with Panathinaikos. We could borrow Eric Palmer Brown.
Look, the connection's there. We can make it happen.
Yeah.
Leach, if you're watching this, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I think if there's any player that deserves European minutes, it's definitely Nico Shakiris. Right. But if he stays here any longer, I think just like Saz says, he might digress, and we don't want to see that.
Yeah, maybe the Quakes, we don't expect a huge superstar coming in for forward or midfielder, but let's see who else is out there in Argentina. We can add another Argentine midfield maestro to the league that appears to be the meta these days and was long before Messi arrived. So now let's talk about the wingers. So we're going to talk about Matthew Hoppe, Cade Cowell, and Christian Espinoza, and I think
Buda.
Benji Kikanovic, Buda. Yeah, so we could talk about those five. Devon, what are your thoughts on our winger group going into 2024?
In terms of a tier list, number one's always Christian Espinoza, and I'll make this fairly quick. Number two, I would love to see Benji Kikanovic serve more minutes for the Quakes. I would love to see what he's capable of, playing under the minutes he was given last season, or currently this season, I guess, didn't show his potential or his true ability. But maybe there was something, in training that we didn't get to see. Number two is Cade Cowell. I just wanted to make that Benji point. Number three, I guess, is going to go with... it's a tie between Buda and Benji, and I guess the rest of the list is kind of history.
Yeah.
Where's Hoppe?
Hoppe? Shoot, I forgot Hoppe.
I also forgot Skane, and we didn't talk about Thompson, which I was going to go to Saz after. So.
Oh my, yes, Skane. How can we forget Skane? Yeah, it's either Skane and Hoppe. Around number two, I'd say Cade 3 and Benji and Buda for 4. With the time that Hoppe was given, I had said that he needs 6 to 8 weeks to kind of insert himself into the team, and that's exactly how long it took for him to get his first goal for the Quakes. And there's a lot of summaries out there from Quakes fans who put Hoppe as a mediocre player, but he hasn't been given that much time with the team to really prove himself and prove his consistency. If he started for the at the beginning of the season, I think he would have made a much bigger impact towards the end of the season, but he was brought halfway through, around league scum.
Yeah, and out of necessity too, in a position of need. So,
yeah, exactly. And so I think he should be given another season to stay if he wants to. And I heard that he is willing to stay. So if he does, that would be fantastic. It's less concern for our depth, and he'd still be considered a U22 if we were to sign him. So he wouldn't have much of an impact on our roster salary cap.
Right. And by the way, we wanted to thank Marine Quake, San Jose Bear, and Crystal. They were among the people that wanted to ask about our thoughts on potential players coming in and out, and what we thought about our roster going forward. I know we didn't directly answer those questions, but through this process, I hope that helps give you some of our thinking. Saz, how do you see Tommy Thompson's role going into 2024?
Before I get into that, my internet cut out for all the other sections, so I'm just going to give my quick summary. I think center back is the position we need more than forwards right now. Nathan and Rodriguez maybe will be great together, but could also be chaos. I think Mensa's out, so I think pairing Rodriguez with someone that's a little bit more the leader would help. Midfield, I feel like we covered pretty well. And then forwards, I wanted to bring in Jack Skane as well. I think he is realistically a winger. I think that's his best position. He became really dangerous for us, so maybe we could grow him there, Benji. But I think other than center back, the two positions we need is a center attacking mid and maybe like a left winger that drive a goal and are either directly involved in the goal or one pass away. I feel like Miro, he is like a hockey assist. Like, and that's what's been so good. Like he also makes a lot of late runs, but he's not the direct goal contributor, if that makes any sense. So we need that direct goal contributor. But I still think we should keep Miro. Tommy Thompson, everyone's expecting me to say great things. Here's my biggest point to using that 2024 extension on him. I'm just going to name some names here. I have some of the roster up. Will Richmond, Asuni Buddha, Keegan Cameron Sealy, Nico Chikaris, Cade Cal, Chance Cal, Emi Ochoa, Edwin Mendoza, Oscar, I'm not going to pronounce his last name right, and Cruz Medina. Yeah. I don't even know how many I just named. I probably forgot one or two. All of those are teenagers, if not like 20, right? Tommy was 17 when he came in. He's now 28. At the very least, like, that's a great guy to have in the locker room. Yeah, 11 years. Yeah, it's a great guy to have in the locker room to be like, imagine coming in as a teenager and not knowing what to do. He can be like, hey, I remember when I was a teenager and I had to go that. That's a great guy to have around and help. He also fills in for some roles. I think there were some games where he came in and it was great for like 10, 15 minutes, very strong and dynamic and put him in different spots. And there were other games where it's like, damn, those injuries are really starting to tag up. But of course, like, I'm going to want to keep him as my favorite player. Like, and then him and Jamiro, I obviously want to keep.
Yeah. I remember playing, like, I think FIFA 14 or something. I did like a player career mode. I made myself American, and me and Tommy Thompson were getting called up to the U.S. men's national team together back during those times. And Tommy Thompson at that age, he was around the same age as you were when you start player career mode. So it was just incredible. He was a center attacking midfielder at that time. And it was, just thinking he's been around for so long and he still has a role to play on and off the field. I think that especially with MLS's restrictive roster policies, you have to get the most out of every player. And there's more than just the on-field product that could go into it. And I know there's some Quakes fans that are thinking, nuke the squad. We need to get all these other different players in. And they're probably playing FIFA career mode right now. So, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, it's just not how it works, and it's just not how it works at the San Jose Earthquakes. I could come up with a laundry list of players that, yeah, sure, let's upgrade left wing. Let's get Leon Bailey, like, okay, but let's keeping it real here. The last players I wanted to talk about are two out-and-out forward strikers, if you want to call them that, Jeremy Bobasi and Ayo Canola. I say this with all due respect. I don't think we should extend the loan of Ayo Canola. I think that should he not have his loan extended, he could be at Toronto for next season. He's young enough to be a part of whatever rebuild is needed there, which is a big one, or he could go somewhere else. Maybe he goes where the other Canadians go and is like, oh, this is actually a good Canadian team now, either Montreal or Vancouver. Let's go there instead. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. As for Bobasi, I do feel like he's at that borderline of he can be an acceptable MLS striker, but I'm just looking around and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have a Christian Arango? And I know I just said, would that even be realistic? Certainly not. Maybe a Georgios Giacomakis at Atlanta, but I feel like Jeremy Bobasi not necessarily comparable to those strikers, that quality of strikers, but I feel like maybe one more season, this is going to be a big last chance for him to really show what he can do. And then we'll just go around one more time on thoughts of Jeremy Bobasi in particular. Let's start with Abram.
Yeah, I'm going to maintain that Abovasi is an upper echelon striker for this league. I know that he had 10 goals this season, but I think when you look at the numbers, he's had way less chances this season than he had last season. Uh, Maybe Cade was playing better and getting the ball more often. I know that there was a few times where Cade got the assist. Espinosa, same thing. Maybe got him the ball more often because his shot numbers are way down, but his conversion rate is the same. Um, I think Jamin Moore reported. I'm going to give all the stats, credit to Jamin Moore. I'm not just going to steal them. But I think he said that his conversion rate is 19%, which is one of the higher conversion rates for a striker in the league. And I don't just want to let that go. I think that we have a team that could potentially, make use of that, and then he could, go back to his 15, 17 goal seasons that we saw when he initially came. So I think that there's still more to see from Jeremy Ebobisse.
Saz?
Well, I think I'm going to build up to an earlier point I wanted to make. He also covered, what was it, like the 5th most ground of players this season. It was something like crazy. He still was a part of 12 goals this season. That's pretty dang good, especially considering like the scoreline as far as. And this goes into my point I want to make earlier about Luchi Gonzalez. If you're Luchi and you're coming into this team that let me see the actual. I can get the actual number up. That scored 52 goals in a season and was in 14th place, you would just say to yourself, oh, I just got to fix the defense. I don't even got to worry about the offense. That was one of Lucci's things at the beginning when he first came in. Is like, I don't want to mess with the offense. It's clearly working. I don't want to change a bunch of guys around. That's part of his good. Let me shore up the defense. And that was something we all raved at the beginning. And he did patch up the defense. So like, and then they realized, oh, maybe that chaotic defense is what led to the goal. So I'm sure this offseason is going to go into that. And I think part of that was seeing J-Bo come back. I think keep him. I think he's been great for us. My only, I would say, criticism is J-Bo will get you 20 goals a season, but he'll also miss 20 goals he should have scored. But like, he'll find that conversion rate. He'll still like be off the ball. And again, like I know I feel like I say it about every player, but like it is a good leader to have in the locker room. Like I've only heard good things about J-Bo and what he does in like the locker rooms. And that also goes to my point with JT Marcinkowski earlier is I know a lot of goalkeepers do not get along with each other. As in there's only 2 spots. And I hear JT is someone that is very like team oriented. But as far as J-Bo, yeah, I feel like he.
And then Devon.
J-Bo should stay. Last season, I think he scored, what was it, 11 plus goals for the Quakes. He was one of the most dominant strikers, I think, in the league. And this season, as Abram quoted Jay Moore, Jay Moore also stated that Jeremy Ebobisse is left-footed, and he scored a lot of his goals last season from the left-hand side, and he wasn't given those chances from the left-hand side to finish with his dominant foot. So the only player he was receiving passes from and crosses from was Christian Espinosa, and some didn't find his head, some didn't find his feet, whatnot. He may have scored some sitters, but I think he would have scored more if we had a decent left winger, sending crosses into him, feeding him chances and opportunities. So that's another aspect that we have to look at from Jeremy Ebobisse. And if we do get that left wing upgrade, who knows? Maybe Jibo will pop off and get 15 or 16 this season, just like Espinosa did. So, who was the other striker? Akinola. Oh, that's right. Okay, so Akinola is confirmed for the roster for next season on Toronto FC. Right. So I'm fairly certain he is not coming back whatsoever since he's already on that roster. Yeah. So there's that.
Right. And yeah, I hope for Akinola, though, he can somehow find a way to return to the form that caused a 3-way tug-of-war between USA, Canada, and Nigeria at one point in his career, because he has potential. And I really hope he can reach it. So the last thing I wanted to talk about transfers and rumors were the two ones that have been circulating around the last week. The one that has a little bit more feet, perhaps, but then again, we're just looking at the word earthquakes in a background, or earthquake, which I guess, yeah, that's suspicious, because how many people on Instagram are posting things, hashtag earthquake, or, that doesn't have to do with a natural phenomena. That's Maxi Urruti. And while, having some more Argentina firepower would be nice, he's 32 years old, coming off a season with Austin. He has scored 2 goals in all competitions this season. So he would be more in the tier of Ayo Akinola type of forwards here, which we would need a backup striker. And sure, give him a shot, but doesn't really move the needle of excitement. And then, of course, there's the much more far-fetched one about, Favi was working on some kind of lead regarding Chicharito. So, we love Favi. Obviously, he's one of our hosts here at Tectonic Takes, and he did pretty well on a podcast over with Inter Miami, one of the Inter Miami podcasts as well. But it's Chicharito. I don't see him doing a reverse Landon Donovan from Galaxy to Quakes anytime soon. If this were to happen, we'd be looking at someone in their mid-30s coming off a season-ending injury, and he provides a lot of goals, usually in the 6-yard box, which would mean you'd have to give him the same consistent amount of service, if not more, than Bobasi would need from the wing position. So, it would be pretty cool. I mean, he's played for 2 clubs that I really love. He played for Chivas and played for Manchester United, but I don't see that happening. But any thoughts on either of those before we move on to MLS Cup prediction game?
They're not
Good?
happening. I don't.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty
I
dry.
think so. Yeah, there we go. All right. So other than that, the Sahara Desert known as San Jose Earthquakes transfer rumors has now been run out once again. So last thing we're going to do today is just take a look at the MLS Cup playoffs. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to say a matchup. I know there's still 3 matchups left to contend with after this Houston Dynamo RSL game that's ongoing. So we're not going to predict that one. But since the score is still Houston 1-0, let's just assume for this exercise that Houston advances. But first up, we got Philadelphia Union versus New England Revolution. Abram, just give me a name.
That's a hard one. I think they're both really good teams, but I'm saying Philadelphia, maybe 2-1.
Saz. Mm-hmm.
I'm going Philly as well.
Devon.
Sorry.
All right, I'm going to make it 4-4 Philadelphia Union. This is their last dance. Their roster's going to change a lot after this, but I think they've got the squad, the capabilities to make one last deep run. The question with the Union is always, can they actually win the big game? We'll see. Next, we have Columbus Crew against Atlanta United. I'm going to start off this one, and I'm going to say I could see some kind of collision course, perhaps, between the Hell is Real derby. So I'm going to lean toward the Crew to get past Atlanta, and we'll go reverse. Devon?
I'm going to go with Columbus as well.
And then, Saz, you are wearing a Columbus Crew, so...
Max Afstrin hat trick, inbound.
Abram?
Yeah, Arvston is a player that we all love. And I mean, he's a rising MLS star. And I just like Columbus Crew, to be honest. I just like their vibe. So, yeah, I'm going with them.
All right. So we have the Twitter drama derby between Orlando and Nashville. If you don't know, you don't know. Saz, why don't you give us a pick between Orlando and Nashville?
I'm going to go Orlando. I don't see Nashville getting 2 in a row.
Devon?
I could see Nashville pulling the second game off. Third game would go to Orlando.
I'm going to go with chaos. I think Nashville pulls the upset. Hani Mukhtar finally gets going again, but Orlando are looking really scary. It's going to be a dogfight, but I'll pick Nashville here. Abram?
At the beginning of the season for Area Sports Network, I picked Orlando to come in 11th place. They definitely did not. And Orlando fans were not happy with me. But no, I'm going with Nashville. I'm still going. I'm rooting for their downfall. I have no reason to, but I have to be vindicated in something. So
All right, so I believe we deadlocked 2-2, but I'll for the sake of this exercise, let's go with Orlando. We'll say the home team will be the tiebreaker for deadlock for this one. So we'll have our final four in the East being the top four seeds. So we'll get Cincinnati versus Union and Crew versus Orlando. So let's do the 3v2 matchup hypothetical. I'll pick Crew over Orlando. Abram?
So what'd you say?
Columbus Crew or Orlando City in that hypothetical semi.
Columbus.
Okay, and then Saz is sticking with Columbus.
I think it might be Orlando that would go through, but I'll say Columbus.
Okay, I won't assume from now on. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Devon, your thoughts?
I want Columbus, but I think Orlando.
Okay, so 3-1 Crew will get to the Eastern Conference Final. And then Cincinnati versus Philadelphia Union. I want to think that the Union can somehow find a way past, but Cincinnati are looking really good right now. They had one potential slip up if they didn't pull through in that penalty shootout against the Red Bulls, but I think that near-death experience, not necessarily near-death, near loss of one of their three lives experience, might have woken up the beast inside. I think Cincinnati pulls through. Saz?
Philly.
Okay, we're 1-1. Devon?
Philly.
2-1 in favor of Philly. Abram?
I'm going to make it harder. I'm going Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Can we accept that Cincinnati, as the home team, sneak through this one?
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's go. Hell is real. All right, so we got Cincinnati versus Columbus. I'm going to back Cincinnati once again, even though we saw the one seed St. Louis fall at the first hurdle. We'll have them come to the East at the top. Let's go to Saz for this one.
I'll stick with Columbus for this.
Okay, 1-1. Abram?
I'm sticking with Cincinnati.
And then Devon?
I think Cincinnati's going to get themselves in trouble. Either that or red cards or injuries, so I'm going to stick with
All right. You know what? Since we went the way of Cincinnati last time, and we do have to be aware of these supporter shield curse, we can say Columbus Crew gets to the final. All right? So we'll have that as our East team. Now let's work our way through the West. So, again, assume that Houston survives their matchup tonight and advances in 2 games. We got resolved game 3 of Sounders versus Dallas. Maybe I'm manifesting what I want, but I'm going to say Dallas. I know it's not very convincing, but I'm going with Dallas. Devon.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dallas too.
Saz.
I'm also going to go Dallas.
Abram.
I wasn't very impressed by Dallas last time we played them. I thought we could have beat them easily, but we didn't. I think Seattle.
All right. Well, 3-1. Dallas goes through. Suck it, Seattle. The Pirate of the Caribbean is going to sink your ship. So we'll go with this hypothetical. So we got the 7th seed Dallas. Now the 8th seed Sporting Kansas City are alive. So with the reseeding, that will give us LAFC versus Sporting Kansas City and Houston Dynamo versus FC Dallas. So Texas showdown there. We'll start there with Houston versus Dallas. I think Houston's the hot team right now, and therefore Houston will be a problem for Dallas.
I think LA plays the winner of Seattle Dallas.
Is it a fixed bracket?
Yeah, it's a fixed bracket. Yeah,
it is.
Oh, crap! All right, my bad.
So the winner of Seattle Dallas plays the winner of LAFC Vancouver. So LAFC. So LAFC
Okay, yeah.
versus Dallas. in this.
LAFC versus Dallas, and I'm going LAFC. Abram
I think LFC.
and Devon.
LAFC.
All right, so LAFC into the conference final. Sporting Kansas City versus Houston is going to be very difficult to pick. Abram, you want to give it a shot first?
Hector Herrera is gonna pull them through. Houston.
Okay, Devon.
Is this Houston versus RSL?
Houston
or
versus
Houston?
Kansas City. We're gonna.
Versus Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going to pull through.
All right, and then Saz.
Yeah, the safe bet is Houston, but I feel Sporting's got something between the history and just the. I don't know. I forget the guy's name. Is the Sporting Kansas content creator? Is the funniest video is like his reaction to the first 10 games of the season they were losing. He was just like slowly going insane, and then they made playoffs on the last day. So I just hope they get through as well.
We'll go Team Chaos. So I'll put Sporting Kansas City through, but I think that's where it ends for me. I'll pick LAFC over Sporting Kansas City. Saz?
I abstain my vote.
You're staying with Kansas City. Abram?
I think that Kansas City can beat anyone. I think that LAFC will win, probably 7 out of 10 times. So I'm going with LAFC.
Okay, Devon?
Kansas City for chaos.
Kansas City for chaos.
To be fair, I said I abstain my vote, but
you abstain your vote.
Yeah,
went to 2-0. So okay, then we'll have Columbus Crew versus LAFC in the final. I'm not going with a repeat MLS Cup winner, and especially can't have the last MLS repeat champion since LA Galaxy beat LAFC. Just for that alone, I'm going to vote for the Eastern Conference representative to win the MLS Cup. In this case, it would be Columbus Crew. Let's go with Devon next.
Columbus.
Saz, one more time, or
I want Columbus to win that matchup.
yeah, and then Abram.
Max Arston comes off the bench, 86th minute, and scores a volley off of a corner kick. Calling it right here. That's the tectonic take for the day.
Any score predictions?
1-0.
I'll give it a 2-2, and then Columbus wins on penalties.
Either 3-2 overtime or, realistically LAFC, but for the sake of this bit, Columbus on penalties.
Devon, your score prediction?
3-2 Columbus.
All right.
3-2 Columbus, and then a red card in
Well, that's our tectonic take. Columbus Crew, 2023 MLS Cup champions. Congratulations, or sorry, depending on what happens in the next month or so. Do not blame us if you lose. We're not liable. But that'll do it for us for this regular season of San Jose Earthquakes' experience here for Major League Soccer. And it was a wild ride. We're really glad we could share it with y'all. We eclipsed the 100 episode mark. We'll see where 2024 takes us. But one thing it will take me for sure, this is my last podcast, not married. My wedding is on November 18th. So honeymoon after that, and then soon to be finals week at SO State and College of Marin shortly after that. So at least for me, you won't be hearing me on the Tectonic Takes podcast for a couple weeks at least. Hopefully over winter break at December, we'll find something to do to give you some content. But until then, I'm just going to be taking a break from soccer content, but I will be back shortly, and I will be back for Tectonic Takes in 2024. What's going on with each of you? Any projects or anything we can look forward to on your ends? Abram?
So I'm currently streaming. You can look me up at RV7, ARPHY. I stream. I'm thinking about streaming some Tectonic Take content and playing a career mode with the Earthquakes. But right now we're just playing some Assassin's Creed. But other than that, I just have some articles that are due. I need to come out with them. We're looking at Cruz Medina, Edwin Mendoza, Useni Buda, Oscar Verhoeven, and probably Dan Muni. We're gonna, have some deep analysis on their stats, and I just want to, show all the Quakes fans who haven't been able to watch Quakes 2 games what these players can do and what they're all about. But that, I can't make any promises about when that will come out, but hopefully before next year.
And Quakes 2 as well finished their season in the quarterfinals. That's when they exited the MLS Next Pro playoffs. So undoubtedly a very successful season for them in their second year of existence. Congratulations to Quakes 2. Saz, you're doing a lot on the Aftershocks lately. What can we look forward to?
I really just want to finish my degree in this year.
Yes,
and
do that first.
Yeah, and to do that, I have to take an extra heavy course load every quarter. I'm hoping to be somewhat consistent throughout, but I have actually already started making plans for after graduation, partnering with some people and doing some stuff like that. So hopefully June, July, August, you see some cool stuff.
Ask the good people of UC Santa Barbara what they know about the San Jose Earthquakes. That could be some fun content.
Yeah. They'll be like, I see one guy wearing the jersey yelling Tommy Thompson at the top of his lungs all the time.
And then Devon, anything new we can expect for you?
Well, if you join the Discord, if you're not in the server already, we do have a couple of projects going on. We have a Minecraft Java Edition server or realm where if fans want to join, they could participate with other Quakes fans and create, build, play survival, whatever is needed. We also have a EAFC Pro Clubs or FC24 Pro Clubs team that we kind of get together and play together every once in a while. So if you would like to join us on Pro Clubs, you could do that. Join the server, and we have a channel dedicated for Pro Club sessions specifically. We're looking to, at least Abram and I are talking about, creating off-season events for Quakes fans and Tectonic Takes fans alike. So hopefully, if you're in the server, you will see those announcements to come shortly, and we'll find some more things for Quakes fans to stay in touch in the offseason.
Right. As for what the next podcast can entail, we won't know when that will be. And right as we're wrapping up, I saw that Real Salt Lake equalized, so we might be eating crow about prematurely pronouncing Dynamo the winner of that matchup. But I think that you could hear from a combination of us once all is said and done with the MLS Cup playoffs, and we can kind of set the stage for the league as a whole, what we think could be on the cards for 2024. And a really exciting time for U.S. soccer, for American domestic soccer across multiple levels, the expansion of the women's game. We're really happy to be here with y'all, including, NWSL coming to the Bay Area. Thank you all for listening to this long podcast, and this is a lot of fun. So thank you all for recording with us. Take care, everyone. Go Quakes.